My dad was an awesome man. He was my daddy. We never called him dad. It was always daddy, because no matter how old we were, he was just so kind and gentle. Unless you got in trouble, then of course you know he had a nice strong hand. But growing up, I mean, he did anything and everything for us that we needed. He worked 2 jobs when he needed to. He was just always there for us. And when he'd come home from work, unlike most people are too busy for their kids, he'd come out and he'd play football with us, and he'd be all-time quarterback and everything. And the kids in the neighborhood always would say, well, what do we call him? And he'd always be like, I'm the old man. Just call me the old man. And so everybody got to know my dad as the old man, and that continued into his fire department. But he was just always there, did whatever he needed to do, would come down to see my brother in North Carolina, go help my sisters with whatever building they needed, cutting the grass, whatever needed to be done. He was just always there to help. And he loved my mother. I've never seen a love relationship like theirs. I don't think they've ever fought. My dad worshiped my mother, would do anything for my mother. My mom would just say, hey, would you go to the store? What do you need? And go get whatever she needed. And even if he came back with, well, this is the wrong thing, this is the wrong thing, this is the wrong thing, he'd be like, well, I was having trouble reading and understanding what the list said. And he'd go right back out again, and he'd fix whatever errors he made and come back down, or my mom would just adjust to whatever wrong tomatoes he brought home or whatever and try to use them. But he did anything and everything that he was ever asked for by any of us.
We met on a blind date in October 26th, and he always told me after the second date he knew that I was the one. We had gone to see the movie Gone with the Wind, and he was ready to propose then. And then we really tried to elope in December. That fell through because we couldn't find the directions. There was no GPS at that time. So we waited, but we were engaged then in January and married in March. 2 weeks before we were married, I said, I don't think I can go through with this. I'm just not sure. It's only been 5 months. I don't think so. And he looked at me and very calmly said, you never have to worry. I'll always have enough love for both of us. And we were married March 29th, 1969, and we were married for 46 years. Happiest 46 years of my life.
And as a kid growing up, volunteer firefighting was in all of our bloods. When we were little kids, and that fire whistle would blow, because then we didn't have the minutors, we didn't have the pagers, we didn't have any of that type of stuff. So the fire whistle would blow, that was your only key that there's a fire. And if we were at home, my brother and I, my dad and my mom, they had a routine of how to get my dad ready, you know, get him out to the car. He'd be going up the road. We'd all wave to him as he went up the road right in front of him and everything. And we'd run down to the apple tree. And we would climb up in the apple tree, and we'd sit in the apple tree because that was our fire truck. And we would pretend like we were doing the same thing that he was doing. But he was a firefighter for 51 years. The last 16 or so, he was the top responder. Even in the year that he died in June, he was still in the top 5. So firefighting was in his blood. He did not like to miss it. He would sit in the bunker seat right behind, and he would make sure he always had the same seat. And they always questioned him, why are you always sitting there? And they finally realized that whenever he'd go by the house, especially at night, he would shine the flashlight and flash it back to let my mom know that he was safely on the truck. And they had that connection where you didn't need the phones, you didn't need anything. You know, you go back to the basic, simple, having some sort of contact and everything. And it was just an awesome awesome experience to have that type of situation occur. But when we did have the funeral for my dad, that was an eye-opening experience, because we were standing in line, and all these people that we never knew any before and everything were coming up and everything. And my dad, we've found out how many people he saved, how many people he helped, that he would go visit these people, that he would go see these people, that he would go And he touched so many lives that we never realized all the lives that he touched before. But the funny part was we realized it afterwards, but never realized it that no matter where we went, somebody knew my dad. He would attend accidents and fire scenes and everything, and he would come home and my mom would be, "How was it?" "Wasn't good." And my mom said, "Well, would you like to talk?" "No, I'm fine." What are the kids doing? What's going on? What's for dinner? You know, never dwelled on it, never brought home all that he saw, never brought home all that he experienced. He was able to separate the two, and we were never affected by all that trauma and all that negativity, because I know from reading in the newspapers and hearing on some of the tragic things that he's seen and some of the tragic things that have occurred, and I'm like sitting there going, oh my gosh, but he never let on. But my dad was a great teacher. He was the one that, and we found this out too, that a lot of firefighters would tell their kids when they were interested in firefighters, join this company, because if you're going into a fire and you need to be trained, you want the old man to train you. The old man will train you better than anybody else. And so he would get all these people to join, and he would take them into their first fires. And he would train them what to do and how to do it, because he had done that, and he was still 51 years old, and he's still going into fires. I mean, 51 years of service, you know. He was 69, and he was still going into fires and still training and still taking these kids in to experience it, and he wouldn't let the fear make them quit. No, come on, I'm with you, we're going to do this together, you're going to be fine. You know, he had that patience. He had that he could do that with people and train them and teach them. And maybe that's where we all my brother and sisters and I, we're all teachers. So we all got, you know, from my mom and my dad, we got these teaching, the patience, the able to work with people and talk people through things and go through things because of who he was.
My father, to me, was one of the best fathers I've ever seen growing up. He cared for us very deeply. He was a kind man. He never turned away anybody that needed any help, any animals. He would always be there for them, for us, whenever we needed it. Even when we messed up, he was there. He understood. He took and molded me into the father that I am today. And if I'm only half of what he was, my kids will turn out terrific. I have deep respect and love for him, and I miss him daily.
There was one certain thing about my dad. He had a twinkle in his eye. And even in pictures, you look at the picture of him and you can always tell who it was, because there was a twinkle in his eye. And I've never seen anybody who, whenever they smiled, had such a smile with this twinkle in their eye. I mean, honestly, and everything. And it was always the thing that we always talked about within my family was his eyes twinkle when he smiles. And he did. He had so much care and love and passion, and just he lived for everybody. He wanted to make everybody happy. He wanted to do everything for them. I mean, my dad was never expected to live. He was born, he was premature, and they didn't expect him to live, and the neighbor took care of him and helped work, because she was a nurse, and helped work with him and everything, and he survived. And she actually came to the funeral and was tore up, because that was her kid too, in a matter of sense, and shortly thereafter she actually died. So it was just kind of amazing. But my dad would do things not necessarily for himself, but for anybody else. We have a tree, a real nice big maple tree in the front yard. And every year he would decorate that with lights. And hundreds of thousands of lights. And my mom would look at it and go, more lights. And he'd put more lights on. More lights, needs them in this area. And he put more lights on. and we'd have the extension cords, and we actually have some lights that have actually, the tree has grown over top and made the tree an electrical tree because it's got all these outlets on it. But it was always his thing, and everybody would always come by, and my dad and my mom, you've got to understand, their yard is a park. They have beautiful flower gardens and everything because my mom loved flowers, and my dad would do anything for my mom. So he would make sure that he took care of the yard, and he would help her plant the flowers, and he would do whatever she needed to do to give her what she wanted. And so with all this, he's doing all this stuff for her. And so this tree lighting, everybody would always say, you know, it's not Christmas until the tree is lit. It's not Easter until the tree is lit. And so my dad, no matter what, he was like, always like, this is going to be the last year. And then people would say, oh, the tree, the tree, the tree, the tree. And he'd be like, oh. And so this past year, my sister and I decided that we needed to do the lights because everybody said, what are we going to do without the tree? So we decided we needed to do the lights because everybody really wanted to have the memory and have that link that they always had, that, you know, the Sensenich family, it was there.